Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share with y'all how to make pumpkin apple butter. This comes together so easily, y'all. I cannot wait to share this with you. Plus a special bonus, how to make pumpkin apple turnovers. Here are the ingredients. I have some puff pastry sheets. We're going to be using some apple juice, some cloves, and those are ground cloves that we're going to be using, some pumpkin, and we're using pumpkin, 100% pumpkin puree, some light brown sugar, ground nutmeg, some ground cinnamon, and one medium-sized apple. So first what we're going to do is we're going to go on and peel our apple, because we're going to peel our apple as well as we're going to grate our apple. Now you want to use a medium-sized apple. The apple I'm using today is Golden Delicious, but you can use either Golden Delicious or either Granny Smith apple. Either one of those is going to work great in this recipe. And when I say a medium-sized apple, I'm talking about the size about as big as a baseball, not too much bigger than that. Now, if you're working with a larger size apple, like say the size of a softball, what you want to do is cut off one side of that apple and use the rest. So that way you're using 3/4 of that apple. And once you're grating your apple, you're going to end up with roughly about a 1/2 cup of grated apple, just like I have here. Now we're going to put together our pumpkin apple butter. So first what we're going to do is we're going to use 1 can of our 100% pumpkin puree, and this is the 15-ounce can that I'm using. And you want to make sure that you're using the pumpkin puree and not the pumpkin pie filling, okay? Next in our pot, I'm going to put in our grated apple. Also, the pot that you want to use is you want to use a heavy bottom pot, and I'm using a medium size heavy bottom pot. I'm using my Dutch oven, and you can use either a Dutch oven pot or either you can use a cast iron pot, but you want to use a heavy bottom pot. Next, I'm going to put in a 1/2 cup of light brown sugar. After I put in the light brown sugar, we're going to add our spices. We're going to put in some ground cloves, and all these spices are classic to pumpkin and the fall and how it really just enhances that pumpkin taste. And so I put in 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and I'm also putting in 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Next, we're going to put in some cinnamon, and the cinnamon we're going to be putting in is 3/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I'm going to put in a 1/2 teaspoon, and then I'm going to put in 1/4 teaspoon to make 3/4 teaspoon total of our ground cinnamon. Now once I have the spices in the pot, we're going to go on and just break everything up, give it a nice stir, because we want to go on and mix in our grated apple, our pumpkin, our brown sugar together, the spices all together. Now at this point, I haven't turned on my pot yet, and we haven't added our apple juice yet. I like to mix all the spices together with the grated apple and the pumpkin and the brown sugar to get that nice cohesive color before we add in the apple juice. And then also the apple juice tends to just slosh around in the pot, and we're using a medium-sized pot, not a large pot, and so it's just easier just to mix everything around and then add the apple juice. So now we've added that apple juice, and that was 1 cup of 100% apple juice that we're using. Now we can gently mix the apple juice in with the rest of the mixture in the pot, just like I'm doing there. I also went on and I turned my fire on my pot, and my fire under my pot is on a medium heat, and so I just mix it around. And this is how once I'm doing the mixing and the stirring, this is how you want it to look. It's going to be this color, this nice pumpkiny fall autumn color right there, and you're going to have those pieces of apple that you can also see. Now it's been about 5 to 7 minutes, and my pot is now starting to boil, and you can see all of the nice boiling and the bubbles that are coming around the side. Once that happens, I go on and I give it a stir. Now after I stir it and it's come to a boil, what we're going to do next is we're going to put our top on our pot, and then I'm going to turn my pot down to low, and we're going to let our pot simmer on low for 1 hour and 15 minutes to 1 hour and 30 minutes. Occasionally we'll come back and we'll stir it. So right now our pumpkin apple butter has been cooking on low with the top on for about 35 minutes. And this is what our pumpkin apple butter is looking like so far. It's starting to just reduce down, and so we're going to put the top back on, let it continue to simmer for a little while longer. So now our pumpkin apple butter has been simmering in the pot for about an hour. It smells amazing in the kitchen, y'all. Our pumpkin apple butter has thickened up a lot. It has reduced down. Do you see how it's nice? And the consistency is just right there. It just needs about another 15 to 30 minutes. So I'm going to put the top back on. I'm going to let it cook about 15 minutes more. And then we'll check it again to see how it's doing. Well, y'all, it's been about 15 minutes now. I let it cool for about another 15 minutes, and as it cools, it continues to thicken up. And this is what it's looking like. This is our pumpkin apple butter. It has reduced down to the perfect consistency. Let's go on and give it a quick try. And let's see how we did today making our pumpkin apple butter. Go ahead. This first taste right here, that's for y'all. Okay, let me go on and have a little taste. You guys, this has come out so good. Now I've got a special treat for you. I'm going to share with you what I do with this pumpkin apple butter, as well as how I like to store my pumpkin apple butter. So what I have here is some canning jars, and I'm going to put some of my pumpkin apple butter in the canning jars. I'm going to keep some, and I'm going to share some with some neighbors as well. Now, these are the tops that you want to get, and I get these from the grocery store. You can get them from the craft store, just different places like that. But you can definitely find them in the grocery store for sure. And so they'll come in different sizes. And so these are the sizes that I like to use. And in the description box below, I'll have a list of the sizes that I like to use for when I make my pumpkin apple butter, as well as my apple butter. And at the end of the video, I will have a link to my apple butter as well that I make in the crock pot. I'll also have a list of all the ingredients you need to make this delicious and simple pumpkin apple butter. Now today we're not going to go through the process of canning our pumpkin apple butter. And the process of canning is when you boil them and then the top seals, and then what you've made will become shelf stable, and meaning that you can put it on the shelf and then you use it and take it out of your pantry or your cupboard when you're ready to use it. Now, once I have them in the jars, what I'm going to do today is once I have all the tops on, I'm going to put our pumpkin apple butter in the refrigerator, and it will keep in the refrigerator 6 to 8 weeks. And so it'll stay in the refrigerator 6 to 8 weeks. We're not going to put it on our shelves or in our pantry. It'll go straight to the refrigerator, and it will keep for 6 to 8 weeks. And then what I do is on the tops, I'll have little labels, and I'll have the date in which we need to go on and finish our pumpkin apple butter, and we need to go on and enjoy it by that date. So now I'm done putting them in the jars, and so this was the last jar that I have here, and I have still some left in my pot, and I'm going to share with you how I make some quick pumpkin apple turnovers, and they come out so great. And in the words of my husband, he said, "These are delicious, honey." So this is how I do it. We're going to get one box. I have one box here of the puff pastry sheets, and you want to make sure that you get the sheets and not the shells. Okay, so you want to have a box of the puff pastry sheets. And so if you've never worked with puff pastry before, it's really easy actually to work with, but the key is you do want to keep it as cold as possible. Now with your puff pastry, you're going to find it in the freezer section, and you're going to keep it frozen at home, and not until you're ready to use it do you take it out, and you unthaw it for about 30 minutes on your counter, just so that it's nice and it's pliable is what you want to do. So you're going to have two sheets that are going to come inside the box, this particular brand that I'm using. So you're going to have two sheets. We're only going to be using one sheet, and the other one I'm just going to go on and put it back in the box and put it back in the freezer. And so now we're just going to be using that one sheet, and each sheet, when you open it up, it has 3 panels, and then you're going to have this like parchment paper that's with it. We don't need that. We're just going to put that aside, and then I'm going to work with one panel at a time. The other 2 panels we're going to put aside, and what I like to do is I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator, and so I use just one of my cutting boards, and I sit it on a cutting board, and then I add it back to the refrigerator. And we're going to use a tablespoon measure to measure out the scoops that we're going to put on our puff pastry. Now also be mindful that you want to get puff pastry and not phyllo dough. Sometimes phyllo dough and the puff pastry, they're in the same section, and sometimes the packaging could look really similar. So just be mindful that you are getting the puff pastry and not getting the phyllo dough, okay? And so what I do is I just kind of roll it out because I want to just stretch it out a little bit and make it a little bit wider. And so we're going to have, it's going to end up about 4 inches long. So almost we've doubled it as far as the width goes. The length, we just stretched it out just a little bit more. Then I take my 1 tablespoon measure and I'm going to put a tablespoon, just about a tablespoon right in the center. Now each panel is going to give me 3 of the turnovers. And so around the edge, I'm patting a little bit of water. So the water is going to be like glue, and it's going to help the pieces of puff pastry to stick together because we're going to be needing to fold it over. We're going to make a nice triangle. You can also fold it over to make a rectangle if you like, but I like to do the triangle fold. And so what I do, once I've patted all 4 sides, I go on and I gently fold it over just like you saw me do there. I fold it over and then I use my fingertips and I press along the edges because we want to seal in our pumpkin apple butter. You want to seal in your filling. And then you can also see how I just kind of curved over the edge. I just kind of bent the edge over a little bit. And sometimes I'll take my butter knife and just kind of help with the crease. Then I take my fork and you see how I'm pressing? You want to press and pull, press down, and like you press and then you pull back and lift up. Pull down, you press, you pull down, and you lift up, just like that. You press down, you pull back, and then you lift up. And then I take my spatula because it's easier to use a spatula to get underneath, just like that, and then I transfer it to my hand. Now I'm going to put these on my baking sheet, and I've lined my baking sheet with my silicone baking mat. You can also use parchment paper as well, but you want to use one of those when you're making your turnovers. And so we're going to do our next one. And again, I just take my water and I'm just using just regular water, going all around the sides, just like that, all around the sides. And you don't want to use too much water, but because you don't want to break the dough down, but you do want it to be nice and moist, so that way it will adhere and stick to the other side of the dough. And then again, fold it over. Make sure you're not leaving too many air pockets. We will put a little slit at the top before we bake them. Now while I'm doing this, I do have my oven preheating on 400 degrees, and they're going to bake for 15 to 18 minutes. Now, if you find that your turnovers are baking too quickly at 400 degrees, you can go on and lower your oven temperature to 375 and let them continue to bake. They're going to bake until they're nice and a beautiful golden brown, and they're going to be a lighter tan color right in the center of your turnover. Another tip when sealing your turnovers is that you want to make sure that the 2 pieces, once you flip it over, that the 2 pieces really start to combine on that edge and become one piece together. And so that way your seal will be a much tighter and a stronger seal. Now when baking turnovers, you will get a couple that will leak a little bit either from the top or sometimes around the edge. That's why it's really important to make sure that you do use either a baking silicone mat or either the parchment paper, putting them directly on the cookie sheet. And if you get a little bit of leakage, which sometimes does happen with turnovers, what could end up happening is that it could end up burning the bottom of your turnover. So it's better to use the parchment paper or either that silicone mat. Now I'm going to do a quick egg wash on our turnovers, and all I have is just an egg that I've beaten with a little bit of water, and that was about a teaspoon of water that I added to my 1 beaten egg. Then I use my little brush here, and this is just a regular silicone brush that I use for my pastries, and then I just brush along the sides, on the creases, and over the top. And the beaten egg with the water, the egg wash, is going to give our pastry a beautiful, beautiful, nice golden sheen as it continues to bake up. Then I use my paring knife and I make a little slit at the top, about as long as my fingernail, just like a little slit at the top, just like that. I go back and forth. That is where steam is going to escape while our puff pastry bakes and expands. Now, we want to check it after about 10 minutes because what I found is that as it's baking and it expands, sometimes our little steam hole will tend to close up. So sometimes you should go in there and just kind of make sure that the hole is still open. Well, this is what our turnovers are looking like, and it is smelling so good in the kitchen. They have come out so nicely. I'm going to put them on this cooling rack, let them cool for just a moment, and then we're going to go on and give them a try. And let me tell you, this is a wonderful alternative if you don't want to make a full pumpkin pie or an apple pie. This is kind of the best of both worlds. It's a nice little treat that you can have in the morning with your coffee or your tea, or you can have it after your nice holiday dinner. It's just like a little bit of something, and they have baked up so nicely, y'all. Now, my family likes to enjoy them just like this, but you can also put powdered sugar on yours if you'd like. Definitely serve them with ice cream. You can also put a nice little drizzle of icing, and I'll have a recipe for you in the description box below for that. Well, this is how they look, and this is the bottom, and this first bite's for you. Now let me give it a try. Wow, y'all, these came out so good. Like my husband said, they're delicious. Well, I hope you give this recipe a try. If you like this video, don't forget to show it some love, give it a thumbs up, and click share, and share this video with a friend or a family, and hit that subscribe button, become one of my wonderful subscribers, and don't forget to tap that notification bell so you can come back and visit me again in my kitchen. Well, that is it for me today, y'all. And remember, it's always good when Dyvonne is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.